Welcome to the Leadership Labs with DeepRec.ai, a podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of deep tech entrepreneurship, company founders, and venture capitalists. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and I'm thrilled to have you join us in this exciting journey. In each episode, we explore the minds behind groundbreaking technologies, the visionaries who dare to push the boundaries of innovation, and the investors who fuel the growth of tomorrow's game changers. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and today's guest is Oksana Rasskazova. Oksana is currently the project leader at Gestalt Robotics, and she's here today to tell us a little bit about her background coming from linguistics into robotics, into leadership, and to talk about some of the things she's quite proud about when it comes to integration of technology. And we'll kick it in. Oksana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. And hello, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Great to have you here, Oksana. Look, I guess let's take it back a little bit more. Let's talk about you and your background, right? How did you even end up? Let's talk about linguistics. How did you end up in linguistics to move into AI? How did that look for you?
Yeah, I think people have quite misleading impression about what people study when they study linguistics. So yeah, I studied linguistics, but during the study we were handling a lot of data. So we don't study like languages. I don't speak 5 languages, just 3. And so we basically, studied what language is and how does it work from different aspects, cognitive aspects, physiological. And in my study, I was doing a lot of data. So like old German databases where we're like annotated syntactically. Then I moved to spoken language and then to physiology. So I've seen a lot of data, physiological data like EEG data, but also movement of the tongue, respiration, and it was all about data. And it was also quite technical because we had a lot of settings up of the labs, a lot of engineering, a lot of try and error, just trying to program, trying to kind of learn engineering just by doing, because we're linguists and statistics. So that was basically my study. And I was really passionate about AI, just like sci-fi, all of this, robots. And I just really wanted to kind of move in this direction. And yeah, then I found a job as a manager at university to build up labs, robotics labs. And because I had experience of building labs in linguistics, so this is how I get in.
Yeah, quite a change, honestly, as someone who spends a lot of time around vision people. Don't see a lot of people moving between linguistics and vision probably the same way not many people go from Java to Python to C#, right? It happens, but it's a bit lesser. How did you find that sort of transition?
I was actually quite impressed that we can have a lot of knowledge transfer. And you think like, oh, this has nothing to do with each other. But now I'm leading projects in computer vision, and what we do, we annotate data. So, and this data annotation, it was the same, like I annotated the data in Old High German, Old Middle German, spoken language data. Whatever I've seen, this diversity of data I've seen during my study as a linguist helps me a lot, like enormously now, to understand different type of data. It doesn't matter if it's vision or language data. So it's about handling the data in the right way. And in the product world, for example, do you know how we develop products, right? We have a hypothesis, and then we need to to do a market research and look if this hypothesis will work. So and test it. So it's exactly how research done. So I found it quite interesting that there are so many things we can transfer.
Nice, nice. So then, I mean, coming then from very much setting up labs
Mm.
to industry. So, Gestalt Robotics, you know, definitely an industry focused business.
Yeah.
What was the difference? How did you find going from labs to industry?
Well, this transition was quite smooth because when I started at Gestalt Robotics, I started with scientific projects because they have publicly funded project as well, where we work with big industry customers and manufacturers on industrial research projects. So for me, it was still being a bridge between science and industry, which I quite enjoyed. And then parallel, I started also take over industry projects. So as I said, I found out I was worried a bit because I didn't have experience and I thought how it will be. But as I said, I found a lot of really similar things which I was doing as a researcher or studied, and I think this diversity of experience actually helped me a lot. So it was actually something good to have.
And then during all this time between setting up labs
Yeah.
and working on robotics projects, you've been one of the co-founders of the Berlin chapter for Women in Big Data. Now, I've attended one of the Women in Big Data events before in Germany, but tell us a little bit more for those who don't know what's the community all about.
It's Women Big Data is actually a global community which was founded in San Francisco, and then they grew and had a lot of chapters all over the world. And I found it's really interesting because it's not just a local chapter of network; it's really global community. And in Berlin, we found out that there were no community. And at that time, my friend, Kasia, who is also co-founder, she was invited to give a talk in a Munich community. And she was so impressed by this community. She came back to Berlin and she said, like, there's no community in Berlin. And at that moment was exactly the moment where we struggled to make this transition between academia and, from academia to industry. And she was helping me at that time, and she asked me, like, let's just do that. And I said, okay. And yeah, we just started. We reached out to the global community and said, we want to do this. They supported us, and yeah, now we are like over, I think, 800 members also in Berlin, having really
Nice.
nice events. And it really feels good to give back because with this community, which helps people in different career stages with mentorships, events, network, and it feels good to help people who struggle with the same problem.
Yeah, I might have to look into that and take some pointers from you. You know, I've been doing podcasts and events and building communities for 7 years, but I would really like to take it to the next level and creating that like mentorship for one, or even just
Yeah.
online networking. Right? I don't want everything to be about, hey, you have to attend the
Mm.
events to get the benefit, because
Yeah.
some people are too busy. Right? We work, we've got families.
Yes, but also usually you should have, in a best case scenario, you should have a mentor at your workplace, for example, but sometimes you don't, and you just don't know how things works. First, you don't know how to get from university to, to industry to make a career. Then you don't know how to move up or how to change the position or how to change the field. And all of this, you just like, I don't know how others doing this. And that's where we come in, right? So we can exchange and help and, yeah,
Yeah.
mentor.
No, I like that, and particularly when you're coming into, in my case, it's AI, and AI is, to be honest, it's a minefield. It's a minefield of information. There's so many super
Yeah.
niches within AI, which is already a niche.
Hmm.
It makes it even tougher.
Exactly. And I still there's still in a job when you look at jobs, it's really you feel that they expect you to have this really straightforward career. So there is not much space like in diversity or just to go like from other fields like me from linguistics to robotics like you said. And it's really hard to show that you have a necessary knowledge through experience that you just gather on the way. And
Yeah.
yeah, so sometimes you just need to translate in another language of the branch. Or
Nice, nice. And I think that's a really nice statement to take me up to my first leadership related
yeah,
question. And I mean, I'd like to consider, and it's not straightforward, right? You've come from a linguistics background, which has also been research heavy, to now being a project leader, which, I mean, you spent years and years learning
yeah,
language, learning syntaxes, learning, like, understanding text sentiment and
mm,
analysis of why certain terms and tones are important, and using them as data points,
yeah,
to now being a leader of people and having all new data points, complete blank page to have to learn from. And arguably it's the toughest, right? It's the technology that doesn't let you down. It's either yourself personally, or in some cases maybe you feel like you've let your team down as a
yeah.
leader. So how have you prepared for that transition, the transition of being a researcher to now being responsible for people?
I think I've never been prepared for it. It's always a jump in the cold water, and always like, oops, well, now we should figure it out. I wish I had a transition, but I think it was a time when I joined the lab at university and we started to build from scratch. We had a lot of money, a budget, and we had to, like, in 1.5 years, we had to build like 6 labs and a lot of technical infrastructure, and we just started to run. And I think that was a time where I discovered my own skills, which I didn't know about before because, as you said, I was in academia. And I understood 2 things: I'm a builder and I'm a good manager. Better manager than the scientist, because it was a point where we just were like 3 of us, and at some point you just had to, take over responsibilities. And we also needed to set up internal team. We needed just build something. We also needed to become a team in a really fast. So, and I just took this role, which for me felt really naturally at that time. And I've learned a lot. It was challenging, and there were many things I wasn't prepared for. But I think that was the time where I really actually realized what I like to do and what it's working. Yeah. So.
Nice, nice. And I guess similarly on that point, right?
Mm,
The transition, although sort of happened in steps for you, right? Linguistics labs to robotics labs
mm,
to a leader in a robotics company. You know, it's it worked out quite well for you, but in
mm,
some cases, people go from research into industry as leaders, or even just research into
mm.
industry. But is there anything that you can sort of look back and you take from your research experience, and that how you like applied that moving into industry, and how it worked for you?
Well, I think yes, definitely. And first thing is handle to be able to handle a lot of information. This is what actually research can do really well. It's to search and to find relevant information in a short amount of time and actually make sense of this information. This is what we train for. And as I said, also to have sometimes needed skeptical view on information. So to have hypotheses, to test them, to ask questions, and to also ask right questions. I think this is one of the essential skills. And all of this, and I mean a lot of data and a lot of analyzing data, but this is more, I think, not personal. This is more, yeah, um,
Nice.
things. But yeah, I think this kind of things are everyone who was in academia can take with them.
Yeah, sounds like I use the word rigor to describe sort of processes like that. Um, were you able to translate any of that sort of leadership rigor from research into industry?
Yes, definitely. I think I was surprised myself, and I think I'm really sad that a lot of people underestimate, people coming from universities and academia, saying that oh, they don't have experience in industry, so they basically can't do anything. I don't think so because I've seen it myself, and I was surprised myself that all of these skills, and because we also, as a research, we work in a really small teams, and we work mostly independently, which is also quite important for leadership later. And sometimes I was complaining being in academia, so, oh my God, I have to do everything by myself. I have to be a linguist, I have to be a statistician, I have to be an engineer and a good writer and a good manager of my project. So everything at the time. So I was complaining about it and I think I actually want to have a team, so delegate some tasks. But this was actually something which we learned, right? To handle different things by yourself, even if it's hard or even if you're not an expert. So
How did you then, I guess, start to manage the long list of expectations with then a growing team, which
mm,
comes with an extra list also as long with more expectations?
yes, I think the key to all of the expectation is a clarity and communication, right? And also always continuous feedback loop from people with whom you're working together. Like, we all have different personalities and different structure. Some, for example, of my colleagues with whom I work in are like more organized and structured, and some of them don't. And I know, okay, for some people, I need to help with structure more, and with clarity. For other people, I need like a bit more communication but less structure. So I think we always have to look at personalities and always ask questions: how you prefer to work, what do you expect from me, not what I expect from them, but what they expect from me, what do they need to be able to do a work. And so I always ask this question continuously.
Nice. Can I ask, where did you pick that up? Right, it's definitely like communication and expectations are,
Yeah.
or even communication of expectations is one of the hardest things to get right. It's a really tricky one, but it's an approach that I would also follow as well. It's what do you
Mm,
expect from me so that I can do
yeah.
what I so you can do what I expect from you. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a backhanded a backhanded expectation, but
Yeah.
it works. I personally
Mm.
feel so. But where did you sort of pick up something like that? Where was the lessons?
I think my lesson was actually my migration background to Germany. Because when I came to Germany, I haven't been my language, like my German and English, was bad, and my communication skills weren't really good, and also it was a big cultural differences. And sometimes I had experience that people were like acting weird around me or just like look at me and I was like, what did I say? Or, people started to tell me like, oh, your intonation was like funny because, I was just transferring my intonation from my native language from Russian, which sometimes kind of felt like dominant or I don't know. I didn't know that. And I was just trying to figure that out. And I started to ask questions people all the time, you know um was it okay, was it, how did it sound, what they expect from me. And yeah, so I think this is where it came from, because it wasn't like that before. But I think this experience of immigrating to a new country, making friends, starting to work in an environment, and yeah, I think this is.
That's that's good. Nice experience brought into it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I wanted to sort of touch on, I guess, if there's anything that you would say has been super insightful or a great lesson that you've learned going from that sort of academia into being a leader in industry that was also very valuable to you.
I think you have to be ready to all different kind of people. So sometimes you talk to a C-level person, sometimes you work with someone who just work in a fabric, right? For whom you are integrating technology. So you have to be able to switch and to adapt in your communication, in your, attitude, and in information you're bringing. And I think this is what we all should learn, because especially coming from academia, we used to be in this academia bubble and kind of, speak a language, we understand each other. And I think people need to be prepared to this one when they
Nice.
change to the industry. And also, I remember when I started to work for the lab, because my boss knew that I came from research, and he also back then. So in the first day, in the first hour, he told me, I said, I have only one expectation of you: think less, do more and faster. If you do mistake, we will correct it. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, but please don't overthink your decision, because he knew exactly that that's a problem which people from academia have. We think about the perfect decision and again and again, and this is what you don't need. You need to handle and fast.
Yeah.
And
I
I was just like, okay, I got you. So, yeah.
I can't believe that you've actually just said that to tee me up for my next question. So look, it's mistakes are a part of human life, right?
Mm.
I'm doing this 10 years, and unfortunately, I still make minor ones that I would expect people who are in the business 6 months to do
Mm.
due to timing, schedule, right? Little
Mm.
things. Um, what what mistakes did you? Sorry, I want to touch on. I say also creating safe learning environments is important to allow mistakes,
Yeah.
and it seems like that was quite the example that was set for
Yes.
you. So being in a safe environment, what were you allowed to learn from? Quickly.
Yes, I think it was really important to feel the safe, that he always, like my previous boss, he always was telling me that do not be afraid, that we will correct it, I will support you, but you have to learn to make decisions. And I asked him, okay, but when I'm going with you to the meeting, I always started to ask him, like, why have you, said that? Why have you made this decision? And he was always explaining why, and it was helping. But I remember also I was looking for a solution, and I found in my head, perfect solution. So it was efficient, it was cost efficient, it was good for people who are working in, and I presented it, and he said, like, no. I was like, why not? I was totally 100% sure that my solution is the best one, efficient one. He's like, no. And I was just puzzling around it, and I asked him, like, okay, explain me why no. And he said, yes, you're right. It is efficient. Is it cost efficient? It's good for people who are working. Everything is perfect. Apart of one thing, you forgot about the vision we have here. It's not aligning with the vision. And that for me was a big learning, because I forgot about it, really, right? So I was running behind efficiency and I forgot about the vision. So that was a good learning for me. And I think the mistake, I've done looking for a solution. And this is what you always have to bring everything together: strategy, vision, costs, right?
Yes.
um Happiness of people. So this is what I've learned this one. And I think I still do mistakes, but these mistakes, I think, mostly is communication mistakes. I always tell myself, write everything down, like, write people summary in email and make them confirm it written in email. And I still prefer do it, like, face to face, just by talking, and this backfires sometimes.
Well, there's that, and then I mean we're time constricted as leaders, right? We have just and as it's a shopping list of tasks bigger than your Christmas shopping list. It's huge. Um, I always have the intentions of sending follow up notes, right? Again, I might
Mm.
do it 80% of the time. And then the next meeting, you're like, great, this is what we spoke about. It
Mm.
presets an agenda, right? Which can be nice.
Yeah.
Um, the safe learning environment. So you had obviously the opportunity to
Yeah.
learn from that. Do you now project that onto people that you work with?
Yeah, I try to. right? I see sometimes when we have especially juniors, that they struggle with something. So I ask, for example, more senior people to take them also, not just give them tickets, not just give them tasks, but also explain them why the senior have done decision, what they've done, why this, what was behind it, so that they understand also this decision making process and what people think. So I try to, yes, to project this.
Nice. Good. I wanted to jump into the next one here on
Yeah.
integration of technology and in particular AI.
Mhm.
I guess look, first one, pretty straight shooting question. Do you believe AI is on track to overtake everything, or do you think we've hit a point now where progression is just going to become slower?
It's a tricky question. Well, first, I think we are far away from AI overtaking everything. So I don't think AI overtakes everything. And I also don't think it's developing slowly. So it's not the case either. But I think there is a difference in a different environments, like we see now with Gen AI, for example. That's this like crazy fast pace of development. And then also it comes to end users like us, super fast. So, and this is like, this is going really fast. But then we have a lot of other technologies which are developing kind of fast, but they are not coming to the end user fast, or not fast enough. And there's a gap between, how fast technology develop itself and how fast it's getting used. So, coming to the end users.
Do you think, is there a very simple way to differentiate those into two categories? One is like
Mhm.
software products that can be available on phones, on websites, and then the slower moving ones to hit the customer is like something that's on an edge device, self-driving car.
Yeah, yeah. For example, the complexity of it, and also I think not only complexity but the risks coming with the technology and consequences. And I think the higher risk and the higher consequences, the slower it, gets to the end user and to use it. And so I can speak for my experience. I work in industry, in manufacturing, with like a big player. And for example, we know that there is a lot of progress and, for example, reinforcement learning or unsupervised machine learning. But this is what you won't see in a, for example, manufacturing environment yet, because the risk of it and always this question of liability, this is, and especially this question in Germany of insurance and liability. Um, this is, for example, why we don't see this technology at all in manufacturing environment. Although the technology is there, it's developing fast. But in some of the areas we won't see it fast, not fast enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a gap. So we always have to see what are this technology and what they, in which environment they used.
Um, you'd mentioned on our call before this that there's like two AI bubbles, and I think you sort of semi touched on one there. You've got startups and you've got manufacturers.
Mm.
Just give us a little bit more, like what does that mean, and how's it impacting the industry?
Yeah, well, because I had experience working on a project base with different customers, and being in Berlin, where there's kind of a lot of startups and a lot of this AI buzz happening around. I kind of had a feeling that there is this bubble where people working on with these technologies, developing these technologies, and for them, it's like, like you said, it's getting really fast and it's a fast-paced environment, and they're kind of, in all of this. And then on the other hand, there are companies and people who are actually leading our whole economy, but they are not up to date with all of what's happening around there, right? When some people ask like, oh, but everyone talking about computer vision, can you explain what computer vision is, right? When it happens something like this, you see, okay, but this person, for example, is actually leading either a company or a big, for example, yeah, the big part of it. So you clearly see that some companies are not innovate fast because maybe there is a some of lack understanding of business cases and the technologies, what technologies can bring, to what business case it could be. And I think we just, this is like what I mean with these bubbles. There's one bubble for whom is everything clear, and there's another bubble who is like, there's something going on, so many things, and I can't catch up. So this is, I think, somehow the problem.
Nice. And I think you mentioned it, obviously. LLMs is one that is catching eyes, right? It's in the startup sector. It's blown up. Computer vision was another one. Now these algorithms are rapidly advancing, right? Some of like the best, probably been more tech advancements in NLP in the last 12 months than there has been in the last 20 years, right? That's crazy to think of, and probably will never see another year like it. But it becomes difficult to integrate these state-of-the-art models, or just bring them into a product that will actually face a customer. It's great having them there, but the real challenge is when an end user is actually playing with it, right? What do you think are the challenges and the roadblocks with integrating, such advanced algorithms into applications?
Well, I can speak again for, like, for example, big industry or manufacturing environments. And it's different, like, to integrate myself because, I just use ChatGPT. I don't think much about my data protection or something like this. I just play around with this, right? But for the companies, it's a different play. And I think when we talk about innovation and integration of technology, integration is a really complex process, and it contains so many other questions. It's not just integrate one product. To integrate this one product, we need IT and hardware infrastructure. We need a network. We need the policies of this company. And sometimes, if we have luck, they have this policy, and sometimes not, right? We have to be able to deploy remote, for example. And then there are different people who own different topics in the company. There's IT people, this, and we have to align with all of them. So basically, what happens is it becomes really expensive, not because technology is expensive, but because time and people involved. It's too many of them. And the companies, they don't innovate as fast not as fast, for example, with always updating the IT infrastructure, the network, right? The hardware. And this is what happens when you say, okay, I just want to have this one product, but with this one product, we need to update this, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. And suddenly it becomes like, the huge project, which has nothing to do with this one AI algorithm itself. But yeah, I think some companies need to have new roles, like people who are responsible for constantly innovating and updating, technology infrastructure at the company, and also who is to try to make it possible to integrate this technology.
Yeah, the phrase comes to mind for me. Putting the cart before the horse.
Yes. Sometimes I think that also expectation problem, because some customers are ready and we come and they already have right stakeholder at place. They already say, oh, we have a policy for this, we have a policy for cybersecurity, so you can use this protocols, and then we're fine. And I'm just like, wow, so we know what to do. And they also want to take ownership after that for the technology. So they want to understand this, they want to learn it, and they sometimes say also, we want to label the data because we know the data, we want to understand it. And this is really pleasant. But sometimes we have a problem that they think we come and we solve all of these problems, but we can't, because we have to work together. It's like, when I come to Germany as a country and I need to integrate myself to this country, I just can't integrate myself alone. I need people on the other side who helped me, to get into this culture, right? So this is actually the same. It's a lot of similarities with this.
Nice.
How
Good.
how ready and open, people for integration.
But I guess still on the integration, and I guess still on people putting the cart before the horse, as they
Mhm.
say. Do you think people just put the value of the AI in this case being the cart and the horse being the actual infrastructure, or more importantly, the cost of the infrastructure? Do you think enough people look at the value that the AI brings in, ROI, but then don't look at the outgoings of what the cost might
Yeah.
be?
Yes, I think this is really tricky because you have to have you have to see everything. You have to understand your use case, like now in 5 years, right? You have to understand what does it will cost also to maintain this technology, to update this technology, to take this ownership, and what does it mean not only for now, but also for the strategy of the company. So there's a lot of things you need to be aware of, and for this you need to understand technology. It's not enough that someone else coming and saying, we just do this for you and it will work. I think the people who want to integrate something in their companies and solve a problem, they need to have a good understanding of this technology and understanding of this cost, what we put in now versus what effect it will have in 5 or 10 years. Will be outdated. How simply is update this technology? How simple is to maintain this? And so, yeah, I think, and a lot of questions we also have with, as I said, liability, and also it depends. I really like to ask my customers, which is not really obvious question. For me, it is, but actually, it's not really obvious. Do you want this algorithm or technology solution as an assistant to the human labor or to replacement? Because it's a totally different, approach. Because if we build it as a system, it's easier because we still have a human who will, control something and so on. So we can iterate faster, we can deploy faster, we can, have a lot of work in progress. But if it should be a replacement, that's a different story, right? And this is what people don't think really about, like, assistant replacement. I don't know, it just should do the job. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a difference.
Well, it kind of takes me to what I was looking to ask. Then after that, it's like, right, you've algorithms, you've solutions, but you might not be able to get access to the end user, or the end user will not really give its fair due unless it's
Yeah.
a replacement, right? Because that's
Yeah.
most people now want the replacement. They want to take tasks off their desk, because I don't know if that's a media
Yeah.
expectation, but that's what people think when it comes to
Mhm.
AI, right? It started with saying there'll be no taxi men. It started with saying there'll be no people working in stores, and none of that
Yeah.
stuff has happened. So we've got a lot of products that are pretty big budgets, and they
Mhm.
don't reach their customers. You know,
Yeah.
what strategies or solutions are there in there to sort of get engaged, the audience that you're looking to sell to, engaged effectively?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's always a problem. We always have like proof of concept, POC, and that's it. And then we don't come to integration or, further development. And it's because of, as I said, like sometimes a big cost. But what I think we need to do, we need to engage with this end user and to make this end user understand this technology better, to have ownership of this technology, and as said, understand the what does it mean in 5 years, in 10 years, and so on, and then to yeah to just take these customers with us on this journey, and so they understand better what does it exactly mean. Because sometimes people, it's everything what you buy or what you do. I don't know, you want to buy a flat and then you're like, oh my god, it's a big debt, I don't want to do this. But when you calculate in 20 years and 30 years, you just, it's a different perspective, even if it is scary to do this now. But you need to understand all of this and calculate all of this. And I think this is where both parts, people who develop the technology and people who buy this technology, needs to take into account and then work together on it. And I only think if we like work together and both sides are, willing and understand the cause and effect of it, then there's a chance.
Yes.
Because initial cost is always like, whoa, no, but the expectation is also like, but then if I pay so much, it needs to perform, like it needs to replace at once. But we're like, no, but we need time, right? Because the algorithm needs to learn. We need the data. We need time. And as with the time, we can replace it. But we need you to help us because it's your data, right? So there's a lot of ownership problems.
That's fair. And look, that sort of closes off on the integration, and I want to finish off on the traditional quick fire questions that we have here. I guess number one, if you were to go back and if you could do something differently, what would it be?
Yeah. You just said that LLM models, like language models, are like now developing so fast. Actually, they're not. I mean, it started like many years ago, but it was invisible. And when I was finishing my study, a lot of students, with whom I was working, they went to Amazon and to other companies, just be annotator, language annotator. So basically, they annotated the sentences and so on. And I was like, oh, I don't know, it's like kind of small. I want to do something bigger. And I think if I could go back, I will go in the direction of, big language models, because it started like, 10, 15 years ago, where the first language starts to be hired by big, tech companies. And so I think I will jump on that train at that time.
You could have been one of the early founders of language models. Who knows?
And the founders, yeah, but I also miss sometimes just, to kind of use my knowledge about language. And I'm just sometimes just envy people that they can kind of use it, in the area.
Is there a book, podcast, or content that you found has been very helpful for being a leader or learning to be a leader?
Well, about being a leader, I don't know. Yeah, so many books, so many books. I don't know exactly about the leadership. I just I love podcasts about self-development, because I think to be a good leader, you have to know yourself and you have to know your values. And so for me, it's helpful not just to have like advisors to be a leader, you need to do this, this, and this. It's to explore myself and other people. That's why I like to watch like podcasts with different inspiring people to learn from them. So I really like podcasts like from Lex Friedman, for example. In US, he has really interesting guests. Or Diary of CEO. And I'm a really big fan of Amy Webb. She's a futurologist, which I think is quite cool career to have. And she consults big companies and even governments on a strategy. So basically, what you need to start develop now to be, in a run in 5 or 10 years. And she was writing a lot of books, and one of them, The Big Nine. So it's about, the big nine technologies and what will happen. So she's kind of was data predicting, the development of technologies, our future, and how we need adapt our business and, ourselves to be ready what is coming in the next 5 or 10 years. And I really like this topic. So I think also this is a part of communication and self-development. This is one thing I think the good leader need to have. It's a vision, right? And to be able to adapt fast, especially now in really fast-paced changing technology world.
Good. And then to take us off with the final question, what are your 3 non-negotiable principles as a leader?
Accountability, clarity, and communication.
Nice. Three really solid ones there. And that's all the time I'm going to steal for you today, Oksana. So For everyone listening, this is the Leadership Labs podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. Oksana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was really cool. Thank you so much.
That concludes another enlightening episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and informative, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the Leadership Labs. Until next time.